The cry in the dark, the night was cold and silent. The ruins of the old battlefield stretched as far as the eyes could see. Broken metal, burnt ships, and the smell of smoke filled the air. A lone human named Ethan Cross walked slowly through the wreckage, his boots crunching against the ash-covered ground. He was a scavenger, one of the few who dared to come back to places where wars had ended. Ethan's ship, an old cargo vessel called Nomad's Breath, rested behind him. He carried a small light and a detector in his hand, searching for any alien tech or human weapon that could still be sold. It had been years since the great war between humans and the alien coalition ended, but the land still whispered stories of death. He didn't believe in ghosts, but tonight the silence felt too heavy, too alive, like something was watching him. His breath came out in small clouds. His heart beat steady but cautious every few minutes. The detector in his hand beeped softly, showing traces of life energy. Maybe from a power cell, maybe from something else. He followed the sound until he reached what used to be a transport ship, now half buried under dust and fire marks. The ship's door hung open like a wounded mouth. Ethan stepped inside, his light flickering across broken walls and twisted wires. Then he heard it, a voice weak and trembling, a whisper that seemed to come from the dark corner of the wreck. "Please, make it stop." Ethan froze, his heart jumped. He turned off his light and listened again. The voice came once more, softer this time, almost fading. It didn't sound human. It was lighter, melodic, and filled with pain. He slowly moved toward the sound. His boots made soft echoes, and the smell of burnt metal grew stronger. When he reached the far corner, his light revealed a torn blanket. Under it, something moved. Ethan knelt down and lifted the edge of the blanket. What he saw made him stop breathing. It was a girl, or at least she looked like one. Her skin was pale with a faint silver tone, her hair tangled and white as frost. Her body was covered in bruises and scars that glowed faintly blue. Every bone looked broken. Her ribs moved unevenly as she breathed. Her eyes, they opened slightly, and they were not human. They shone like shattered glass reflecting 1,000 stars. She looked at him with fear, with exhaustion, with the kind of pain no one should ever feel. Her lips trembled. "Kill me, please," she whispered again. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He had seen bodies before, soldiers, enemies, and even friends lost in battle. But this was different. This was cruelty. This was suffering made by design. He reached for the chains that bound her hands. They were not alien-made. They were human. Metal cuffs marked with Earth insignia. That realization hit him like a knife. "Who did this to you?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer, only flinched as he touched the cuffs. Her breathing quickened, her wounds began to glow brighter. As if reacting to fear, Ethan looked around. Every instinct told him to leave, to walk away, to save himself. But another voice inside whispered louder, "Don't." He took out a small cutter from his belt and began slicing through the cuffs. The first one snapped, sparks flying. The girl gasped in pain but didn't pull away. He worked on the second, then the third. When the last chain fell, she collapsed into his arms. Her body was trembling, light pulsing faintly from her wounds. Ethan could feel heat through his gloves, not from fire, but from her skin, like she was burning from inside. He lifted her carefully. She was light, too light, as if her bones were hollow. He carried her out of the ship and toward his cargo vessel. Each step felt heavier. The night wind hit his face, and he looked up. The sky above was full of dying stars. Once inside his ship, he placed her on a medical bed. The scanner beeped wildly, confused by her biology. It showed readings that made no sense, double hearts, liquid light in her veins. "Who are you?" Ethan whispered. Her eyes fluttered open again. She looked at him, tears mixing with blood. "They made me," she said weakly. "Humans made me." Ethan froze. The words echoed in his head like thunder. He didn't know what to say. He only stared at her, at the proof that humanity had created something so beautiful and broken at the same time. She coughed softly, her hand trembling. "Please, make it stop," she whispered again. And her eyes slowly closed. Ethan sat beside her, his fists tight, his mind racing somewhere deep inside. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, anger mixed with guilt. Outside, the ruins were silent, but his ship's radar blinked faintly. Someone was searching. A signal pulsed through the air, tracking movement. Ethan looked back at the alien girl lying unconscious, her wounds glowing under the dim light. He knew what would happen if the wrong people found her. He reached forward and covered her with the same torn blanket she was found under. His voice was low, steady. "You're safe now," he said. Then he walked to the control panel and powered up the engines. The ship rumbled softly, light flickering across the dark wasteland. As the Nomad's breath lifted off, Ethan looked once more at the broken world below and whispered to himself, "Whatever they did to you, I'll make it right." The stars outside shimmered faintly, and somewhere in the dark, unseen by human eyes, a red tracking light blinked to life. The hunt had already begun. The wounds that spoke. The ship drifted through the upper atmosphere, engines whispering against the silence of space. Inside, Ethan Cross stood over the medical bed, his hands shaking slightly as he checked the strange readings on the scanner. The alien girl, still unconscious, breathed unevenly, faint silver light glowing beneath her skin like veins of liquid fire. Every time she exhaled, the lights on the console flickered, as if her very body interfered with the ship's power. Ethan had seen strange things before, but nothing like this. Her wounds refused to close. The scanner couldn't identify her blood type, and her heartbeats came in two separate rhythms, like two lives trapped inside one fragile body. He muttered under his breath, "What did they do to you?" He reached for a small medical injector and tried to apply nanogel to seal one of the burns. The moment the gel touched her skin, the wound pulsed with light, and then the device exploded in his hand. Sparks flew and the entire cabin dimmed. Ethan stumbled back, watching the gel dissolve into smoke. The girl's body arched as if rejecting the touch. Her voice was barely audible. "Don't touch. It hurts." Ethan froze. She was awake, her eyes opened slowly. Glowing faintly blue, he could see fear there, confusion, and something else, shame. "It's okay," he said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "You're safe now." She blinked slowly, her gaze wandering around the small cabin. "Safe?" she whispered, almost like she didn't understand the word. "Yes," Ethan replied. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her voice trembled. Humans always say that before the pain starts again. The words hit him like a blade. He had no answer, only silence. Outside, the stars glimmered coldly through the viewport. He poured some water into a small cup and handed it to her. Her thin hands trembled as she took it, drinking slowly. The water reflected the light from her eyes. Her breathing steadied for a moment, and then she whispered something strange, almost to herself. "Project Seraph." They wanted gods to bleed. Ethan frowned. "Project what?" But she didn't reply. Her gaze turned distant, lost in some memory too painful to relive. He walked to the control panel and scanned the nearby radar. A red warning flashed. A faint signal had locked onto his coordinates, unidentified but human-made. He cursed under his breath. He knew what it meant. Someone had found him. Ethan turned off the main lights and switched to stealth mode. The ship's engines lowered their hum to a whisper. He checked the readings again. The tracker moved closer, like a shadow hunting through space. He returned to the girl. "We have to move," he said. She looked at him weakly. "You shouldn't have saved me." Ethan clenched his jaw. "That's not how I work." Her lips quivered. "They'll come for me." "They always come." The radar beeped again, closer now. He could almost feel the vibration of pursuit through the hull. Ethan rushed to the pilot seat and adjusted the controls. The ship's navigation blinked red, indicating energy interference. The girl's body light was distorting the cloaking field. "Damn it," he muttered. "You're like a beacon." She closed her eyes, pain spreading across her face. "I can't stop it. It's inside me." The words sent chills through him. "What's inside you?" She turned her head slowly, meeting his eyes. "Something that belongs to them." Before he could ask more, the radar screamed louder. A human drone ship appeared behind them, sharp and dark, moving fast. Its scanner light cut through space, scanning for signs of life. Ethan's heart raced. He hit the thrusters, pushing the ship into a dense debris field of broken satellites and metal shards. The drone followed, firing warning bursts of plasma. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring. Ethan struggled to keep control. "Hold on," he shouted. The alien girl screamed, her body glowing brighter with every impact. The wounds on her skin lit like molten glass, her pulse matching the drone's energy attacks. "They see me," she cried. "Through me." Ethan's eyes widened. "You mean your body's a tracker?" She nodded painfully. "They put it inside me. I can feel it moving." Ethan didn't think twice. He turned the ship sharply and dove into a dark cloud of asteroid fragments. The drone's radar lost lock for a moment. He grabbed his toolkit, slammed open the medical cabinet, and returned to her side. "I'm going to get that thing out of you," he said. Her eyes widened. "No." You can't. He ignored her, scanning her chest and spine with a handheld sensor. The screen showed a faint pulsing object deep near her heart. Small but alive. It moved slightly every time she breathed. That's it, he whispered. It's not just a tracker, it's something living. The drone fired again. A blast hitting the side of the ship. Metal screamed, lights flickered. Ethan grabbed a plasma knife, his hands steady now despite the chaos. He looked at her. I'm sorry. She stared back. Fear and trust mixed in her glowing eyes. Do it, she said. The ship trembled as he pressed the blade to her skin. The glow around her body flared white. Her scream filled the cabin, and the world around them seemed to hold its breath. When the blade touched the pulsing object, Ethan saw it, small, black, covered in veins of red light. It twitched like a creature, whispering in broken voices. He pulled it free, and for a moment, the voices spoke directly into his mind. Ethan Cross. Rejected subject. Incomplete. He dropped it, shock freezing him in place. The object hit the floor and crawled toward the ship's controls like a living parasite. The drone outside turned sharply as if receiving new orders. Ethan grabbed the burning implant with his gloves and slammed it into a containment box. Sealing it shut, the girl gasped, her body finally still. The light in her skin dimmed to a soft shimmer. The radar stopped blinking, the drone paused, then turned away, losing its signal. Ethan fell back against the wall, breathing hard. He looked at the sealed box, the faint red veins inside still pulsing slowly. Whispering words he couldn't understand, he looked at the girl, now unconscious again, and whispered, "What the hell are you?" The ship drifted in silence once more, surrounded by the ruins of forgotten battles. But deep in the containment box, something twitched, its whisper growing clearer with each beat. The chase through fire. The dawn on the dead planet looked like the end of time. Ash drifted across the red horizon, and the wind howled through the hollow ruins of what used to be a city. Ethan Cross stood by the edge of his ship, sweat dripping down his neck. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not this long. Not with what he carried inside the medical bay. The alien girl, Lyra, was barely conscious. Her wounds glowed with soft blue light. Her breathing uneven. Every time he checked her vitals, the readings changed. Her heartbeats pulsed in two different rhythms, one weak and human-like, the other sharp and alien. He stared at her in silence, his mind replayed the moment he found her under that blanket. The sound of her whisper, "Please, make it stop." That voice haunted him more than any battlefield ever had. He didn't know why he'd saved her. Maybe guilt, maybe madness, maybe because she was something he didn't understand, and part of him needed to. Suddenly, the ship's scanner began to beep, red warning lights flashing across the control panel. Ethan rushed to the cockpit. His stomach dropped when he saw the signal on the screen. Human military drone. Model Ares 47 approaching fast. "Damn it," he muttered, slamming his hand against the console. He flipped every stealth switch he had, but the radar still locked on from the med bay. Lyra's voice came weak but sharp. "They found me," Ethan turned. "Who?" Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly. "The ones who made me. They never stop looking." The sound of engines roared outside. A streak of blue light cut across the sky, shaking the ground. The drone's scanners bathed the area in a harsh white beam. Searching, Ethan grabbed his jacket. "We're leaving." Lyra tried to sit up but winced, clutching her ribs. "You can't run," she said. "They see through me." He stopped, confused. "What does that mean?" Her eyes filled with something close to fear. "There's something inside me, alive, connected to them." Before he could respond, a blast tore through the ground near the ship. Throwing him off his feet, dust and smoke filled the air. Ethan stumbled up, blood dripping from his brow. The ship's alarm screamed, "Hold on!" he shouted, diving into the pilot's seat. The engines roared to life, flames shooting from the thrusters. The Nomad's breath lifted off the ground just as another missile streaked past. Grazing the hull, the explosion rocked them violently. Lyra screamed as the light from her body flared uncontrollably. Her veins glowed white-hot, and the ship's circuits flickered. Ethan looked back at her. "What's happening?" Her voice broke. "They're using me as a signal." He didn't hesitate. He turned the ship sharply, diving into the canyon below. The walls of black stone closed in around them, plasma bolts firing from above. The drone chased them like a predator, its mechanical eyes burning red. The comm crackled, a cold voice echoing through. "Unauthorized biological detected. Termination order confirmed." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Not today," he growled. He pushed the thrusters to maximum. The ship scraped against the canyon walls. Sparks flying, Lyra gasped, holding her chest. It's inside me. Moving, he turned to her, his heart pounding. What's moving? She met his eyes, terror flooding her face. The tracker. He felt ice crawl down his spine. You have a tracker inside you? She nodded weakly. It's not metal. It's alive. The ship jolted as a missile exploded nearby. The impact sent tools and debris flying through the cabin. Ethan grabbed the medical kit and rushed to her side. He activated a small handheld scanner, sweeping it across her chest. The screen showed something glowing near her heart, something pulsing like it had its own heartbeat. Whatever this is, he muttered. I'm taking it out. Lyra's hand shot out, gripping his wrist. If you touch it, it will wake. He stared at her, his voice low. Then we'll make it sleep forever. He grabbed a plasma blade from his belt, its blue light humming softly. Lyra's breathing quickened, her eyes wide. You don't understand. It's not just tracking me, it's watching you now. Her words froze him. Me? She nodded, tears welling up. You're part of it too. Before he could ask how, the drone's voice echoed again. Subject Alpha detected. Secondary signature confirmed. Both assets live. Ethan's hands shook. He looked at her. What did they just say? Lyra's lips trembled. You're one of them. He didn't have time to process it. Another explosion hit the rear of the ship. Systems sparking. The control screen turned red. Engines overheating. He pushed forward anyway. We're not dying here. He dove the ship toward a storm cloud of ash and fire, lightning crackling through it. The drone followed close behind. Ethan hit a switch, releasing a trail of burning fuel, then triggered the ignition. A wall of fire erupted behind them. The explosion tore through the sky. The drone disappeared in the blast, engulfed in flames. The nomad's breath tumbled. Alarms screaming, Ethan fought the controls, landing hard in a barren valley of glowing dust. The impact knocked the breath out of him. He coughed, tasting blood. Silence returned. Only the hiss of cooling metal remained. He looked back. Lyra lay still, her body trembling. Her skin flickered between silver and blue. The glowing mark on her chest pulsed faster, louder, almost like a heartbeat that didn't belong to her. Ethan knelt beside her, placing his hand gently on her arm. Stay with me, he whispered. Her eyes opened slowly, her voice a whisper of fear. They're coming, Ethan! And not just for me. He looked toward the horizon and his blood ran cold in the distance. Dozens of lights appeared, more drones, more ships rising from the dust. He muttered under his breath. How many of them are there? Lyra looked at him with fading strength. All of them. Ethan clenched his fist, standing tall. His reflection glowed faintly in the ship's cracked window, his veins shimmering faint red, the same as hers. He whispered to himself. Then they'll have to kill both of us. The wind screamed through the canyon as the first drone descended. Red lights cutting through the darkness, and somewhere deep inside Ethan's chest, something began to glow. Something that wasn't entirely human anymore. The living code. The dim light of the control room flickered like a dying heart. Ethan sat on the metal floor, his hands trembling. The containment box in front of him pulsing with faint red veins. The whispers inside hadn't stopped since he sealed it. They weren't mechanical, they were alive. Soft, layered, and disturbingly human every few seconds. They repeated the same words, Ethan Cross. Rejected subject. Compatible. He tried to drown the sound out by turning on the ship's engines. But even through the noise, the whispers bled into his thoughts. He pressed his palms to his temples, sweat sliding down his face. He had faced death before, but never something that spoke directly into his mind. Behind him, the alien girl, Lyra, as he had learned in a brief, fragile moment of clarity, lay unconscious again. Her breathing was steady, but the glow under her skin had changed. No longer bright and cold, it was warm now, shifting in rhythm with his own heartbeat. He didn't notice it at first, but every time his pulse quickened, the light in her veins followed. He stood slowly, moving to check her vitals. The monitor above her bed showed something impossible. 2 patterns overlapping, hers and his, intertwined like they were syncing. That's not possible, he muttered. Then the whisper came again. This time not from the box, but from behind him, a soft, broken voice. Because we share the same blood, Ethan turned sharply. Lyra was awake, her eyes were open, brighter than before, glowing with a strange light that was not just hers. It mirrored his own reflection, faintly shining in the metallic walls. What do you mean? He asked quietly. Her lips trembled. "They made me from you," she whispered. "From your DNA, from your memories. From your failures?" The words struck him like lightning. "That's impossible," he said, shaking his head. "I was just a soldier. A nobody." She blinked slowly, pain flashing across her face. "You were part of Project Seraph, Ethan. You were chosen to be one of the prototypes. They called you the human base. You were supposed to create the bridge between species, between humanity and us." Ethan took a step back, disbelief in his eyes. "No," he said. "I never signed up for anything like that." Lyra gave a faint, sad smile. "You didn't have to. They took what they needed without asking." Ethan's mind raced. Memories flashing. Military checkups, unexplained blood tests. The strange scars on his shoulder he never remembered getting. It all started making sense. The nightmares he thought were war trauma were not dreams. They were fragments of something real. He looked at the box again, its red veins pulsing faster, almost feeding on their conversation. "And that thing?" he asked, pointing at it. Lyra's eyes followed it, her expression tightening. "That's the core link. The living code that binds the subjects. It's made from neural tissue and synthetic DNA. It connects every experiment, every test body. It connects me to them." Ethan's jaw clenched. "You mean it's connected to whoever created you?" She nodded weakly. "It listens. It watches. It learns. You cut it out. But it already knows you now." The whisper inside the box changed. Shifting tone, now softer, almost gentle. "Ethan Cross, Subject Alpha, return home." The ship's lights dimmed again, screens flashing red. Systems started shutting down one by one. Ethan rushed to the controls, trying to override the interference, but his hands froze midair. A wave of static hit his mind like electricity. For a moment, he wasn't in the ship anymore. He was standing in a white lab, surrounded by tanks filled with blue light. Inside them floated shapes, half human, half alien. Some were alive, some were not. He heard voices, scientists, officers, and one man with a deep voice saying, "If this works, humanity will no longer be human." Ethan gasped and stumbled back into reality. His chest burned, his nose bled. Lyra reached for him, her glowing hand touching his cheek. The pain vanished instantly, replaced by warmth that spread through his veins. Her voice was soft. "Now you've seen it. The truth you weren't supposed to remember." He looked at her, his voice cracking. "Then why help me? Why save me when I'm one of them?" Lyra smiled faintly, a tear sliding down her silver skin. "Because you didn't choose it, and because when I begged for death, you didn't walk away." The containment box began to shake violently. The red veins expanded across the metal like roots. The voice grew louder, harsher. "Subject Alpha compromised, link unstable. Reactivator terminate." Ethan grabbed the plasma cutter and aimed it at the box. "I'll destroy it," he said. Lyra's eyes widened. "No, if you do, it will react. Your DNA is inside it. It will see that as a threat." The lights in the ship burst and the gravity field flickered. The floor tilted as the ship was yanked by an invisible force outside. Something massive moved through the darkness, a human vessel. One of the old Seraph carriers, still operational. Its hull bore the mark of the old Earth division. Glowing white against the void, Ethan's heart sank. "They found us," he whispered. Lyra's hand gripped his arm, her light growing stronger. "No," she said. "They found you." The carrier sent out a beam of scanning light that cut through the blackness and stopped directly over Ethan's ship. The containment box pulsed in rhythm with it. The voice turned into a scream. "Subject Alpha confirmed. Retrieval protocol active." Ethan didn't think. He grabbed Lyra's hand, pulled her toward the emergency pod. "We're not going back," he said. She shook her head. "You can't run forever." "Ethan, watch me," he answered, hitting the release. The pod shot away from the ship as the Seraph carrier locked on with missiles. Behind them, Nomad's breath exploded in a wave of fire and light. The force hurled the pod into the void. Spinning endlessly, Ethan held Lyra close, the burning reflection of the explosion glowing in both their eyes. And in that silence that followed, he heard the whisper again. No longer from the box. No longer mechanical, but from inside his own head. "You can destroy the ship, but you can't destroy what you are." Ethan looked down at his arm. His veins glowed faint red, the same as the creature he'd sealed. The living code had already chosen a new home. And for the first time, Ethan Cross realized the truth. He wasn't just saving her, he was becoming her. The memory of stars, The emergency pod drifted silently through the endless dark, its small engines long since dead. Only the faint hum of the life support system remained, and the slow rhythmic breathing of two survivors, Ethan Cross and the alien girl named Lyra. Inside the small metal shell, the air was thin, the light dim. Ethan floated in weightlessness, staring at the reflection of himself in the cracked glass of the pod window. His veins still glowed faint red, pulsing faintly under his skin. The light didn't belong to him, he could feel it. Alive, whispering, moving like a second heartbeat. Across from him, Lyra slept, her face calm for the first time since he'd found her. The glow beneath her skin had faded, replaced by soft silver lines that traced her body like constellations. She looked almost human now. Peaceful and fragile, Ethan stared at her, and a strange feeling filled his chest, something between guilt and awe. He turned toward the blackness outside. The stars stared back, countless and cold. Each one felt like an eye watching him. He spoke softly. "If they made her from me, what does that make me?" Then came a voice, not Lyra's, not human either, but something inside his mind. "A bridge," it whispered. "You were meant to unite them, not destroy them." Ethan's hands clenched. He looked around the pod, but there was no one there, just the faint vibration of something inside him shifting. "Get out of my head," he hissed. The voice didn't stop. "You can't run from what you are. Ethan Cross, you are the key and the lock. Humanity's final experiment." He slammed his fist against the wall, metal ringing in the silence. "I'm done being someone's experiment." The movement woke Lyra. She blinked slowly, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "You heard it too," she said weakly. "The code inside you is awake now." Ethan looked at her sharply. "How do I stop it?" She shook her head. "You don't. It's not a machine, Ethan. It's a living memory. It carries every thought, every pain, every scream from the others who came before us." Ethan frowned. "The others?" Lyra looked away, her voice trembling. "There were hundreds. They took humans and aliens, mixed them, broke them, erased them. You were the first who survived." Her words hung heavy in the stale air. Ethan tried to speak, but his voice broke. "Then why can't I remember?" "Because they made you forget," she whispered. "They buried the truth inside your mind, and now it's waking up." Suddenly, the pod's lights flickered. A low hum filled the air. Ethan felt a sharp pain in his skull, and the stars outside blurred, replaced by flashes of light sounds and memories that weren't his own. He was standing in a glass chamber, surrounded by men and women in white suits, their faces blurred, voices echoing like broken recordings. "Begin phase 3, Cross is responding. Neural link stable." Increased serum flow. He felt pain, his veins burning. Light crawling through his body, the world spun. And then he saw Lyra, smaller, younger, floating in a tank of blue light, reaching toward him through the glass. He gasped and opened his eyes, back in the pod, sweat pouring down his face. His hands shook. He looked at Lyra, who watched him silently. "You saw it," she said. Ethan nodded slowly. "They used me to make you." Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. "And now, you're remembering what they erased." Ethan swallowed hard. "Then what's the point? What did they want from us?" Lyra's voice trembled. "Control. They wanted to create a being that could survive anything. One that could feel both human empathy and alien power, a weapon with a conscience." Ethan's chest tightened. "And did they succeed?" She looked into his eyes, her expression soft. "Not in the way they hoped." Outside, something flickered in the dark, a faint blue light moving across the stars. Ethan noticed it immediately. "What's that?" he whispered. Lyra's face turned pale. "They found us." The blue light grew brighter, splitting into 2, then 4, then dozens, forming a massive fleet emerging from the void. The insignia on the ships glowed white. The Seraph Division. The same mark burned into Ethan's memories. He grabbed the controls of the dead pod, slamming his hand on the manual override. "Come on!" he shouted, but the engines refused to respond. Lyra reached forward, placing her glowing hand on the control panel. The metal under her touch melted slightly, and light spread through the circuits. The pod came to life with a hum. Ethan stared, astonished. She smiled faintly, weak but determined. "Because we're linked now, my power. Your will, together we can move." The pod jolted forward, diving into the darkness between the ships, laser fire streaking across the black sky. Ethan maneuvered through the chaos, his body moving with impossible speed. His eyes glowed red, his heartbeat syncing with Lyra's. The voice in his head spoke again, louder now. You cannot hide from creation. Ethan Cross, you are its end and beginning. He gritted his teeth. Ignoring it, Lyra, where do we go? She closed her eyes. There's a station. Hidden behind the Seraph fleet, that's where it all began. That's where it must end. The ships closed in. Alarms screamed. Ethan pushed the pod to its limit. They shot between two cruisers, flames trailing behind them. Every light in the cockpit flickered. Lyra's breathing grew weaker. He looked at her, panic flashing in his eyes. Stay with me. Her voice was faint, almost gone. Ethan. The link at its choosing. He didn't understand. What do you mean choosing? Her eyes glowed one last time. It can save one of us. Not both. His chest went cold. No, there's got to be another way. She smiled faintly, tears shining like stars. You already gave me a reason to live, Ethan. Now let me give you a reason to fight. Before he could stop her, she pressed her hand against his chest. The glow from her body surged into him, burning brighter and brighter until he screamed. The light filled every corner of the pod, drowning out everything, pain, fear, even sound. When the light faded, Ethan was alone. Lyra's body lay still, her skin no longer glowing. Her eyes were closed peacefully as if she had finally found rest. Ethan held her in silence, his hands trembling. The stars outside shimmered, reflected in his tears. Then he noticed something. His veins, once red, now glowed silver. He whispered, voice breaking. You said one could live, but I won't let it be wasted. Outside, the Seraph fleet began to close in, but Ethan's eyes opened, glowing brighter than ever before. The stars seemed to tremble, and for the first time, the void wasn't silent, it was waiting. And somewhere, faint and soft, he heard her voice again. Not from outside, but within. Live. For both of us, Ethan gripped the controls, the silver light spreading through his arms and into the ship. The pod turned sharply, facing the entire fleet head-on. His whisper was calm, steady, almost peaceful. Then let's finish what they started. The stars flared white, and the battle for creation began. The human choice. The stars were burning. Whole constellations trembling under the light of the approaching fleet. The Seraph ships spread across the void like a swarm of steel angels, each one pulsing with energy, each one carrying the same purpose. To reclaim their lost creation. Inside the small pod drifting before them, Ethan Cross sat motionless, the glow in his veins no longer faint. It burned through his skin like molten silver. The metal around him vibrated, alive, responding to his heartbeat. The link that once belonged to Lyra now surged inside him. Her voice, her memories, her power, all living through him. He could still feel her presence, faint and warm, whispering in the back of his mind. Don't fight for revenge, Ethan. Fight for freedom. He looked at the fleet ahead. 1,000 cannons pointed directly at him. His hands rested on the controls. The pod's systems, long dead, now hummed with impossible energy. Lights danced across the dashboard like stars coming alive. He didn't understand how, but he could feel every part of the machine, like it was a part of him. The main Seraph ship transmitted a signal, a cold, commanding voice filling the silence. Subject Alpha, surrender immediately, or face termination. Ethan smirked faintly. Termination? He whispered. You already tried that, the voice continued. Emotionless. You belong to us, return to the core station. And your neural link will be preserved. He pressed a button, activating the transmitter. I don't belong to anyone, he said quietly. Not anymore. For a moment, the fleet hesitated. Then, the first blast came, a blinding ray of energy ripping through the void. Ethan's instincts took over. His eyes glowed white. His hands moved faster than thought. The pod twisted sharply, dodging the beam. The entire ship bent under the force but didn't break. The light around Ethan flared like a shield. He felt Lyra's voice again. Use the link, Ethan. Don't run, reach them. He closed his eyes, focused. The energy that ran through his body reached out like invisible threads, touching the space around him. He felt the presence of every Seraph ship, every pilot inside. Hundreds of minds, all linked through the same living code that now pulsed inside him. And then he did something no human had ever done. He reached into them. For an instant, time itself seemed to stop. Ethan's consciousness split across the fleet. He saw through the eyes of soldiers, engineers, commanders, all of them frightened, controlled by the same system that had created him. None of them were evil, only bound by the chains of obedience. He felt Lyra's voice again. Now you understand, they're victims too. Set them free. Ethan raised his hand, light bursting from his palm. The wave of energy spread across the fleet. Silent but unstoppable, the ships began to flicker. Systems shutting down one by one. Pilots gasped as their control links broke. A strange quiet fell over the battlefield. But then, deep within the command ship, a different voice rose. Darker. Deeper. Older. You cannot undo creation. Boy. Ethan's body froze. Pain exploded in his head, his link pulsed violently, and the light dimmed. He gasped. Falling to his knees, the voice continued. You were designed to obey, not to think, not to choose. He forced himself to his feet. His teeth clenched. Then why can I feel? He shouted, why did she die for me? The voice paused. Because she was a flaw. Anger surged through Ethan. His veins flared again, brighter, hotter. His voice shook with fury. Then I'll be your flaw too. He raised both hands. And the stars themselves seemed to bend. The wreckage of old ships around them began to move, drawn by the magnetic pull of his will. Pieces of alien metal and human steel formed a halo around his pod. Spinning faster and faster, inside the command ship, alarms blared. The system screamed warnings. Uncontrolled energy surge detected. Central core destabilizing. Ethan closed his eyes. His voice calm now. You called me Subject Alpha, he said. But she called me Ethan. The light around him exploded outward. A massive shockwave ripped through the fleet. Turning weapons into dust, the energy hit the command ship. Tearing through its hull, every system collapsed, every code link severed. The great Seraph carrier burned silently. Its light fading into the black, Ethan floated in the aftermath. Surrounded by drifting debris and silence, his body weak, the silver glow fading. He looked at his reflection in the cracked glass. Half human, half something else, his eyes shimmered like Lyra's. He whispered softly, it's done. But Lyra's voice came again. Quiet and fading. No, Ethan. It's just beginning. The code isn't destroyed. It's inside you now. You are the memory of both worlds. He closed his eyes. Tears floating in the zero gravity. Then I'll make it mean something, he whispered. A distant light appeared. A rescue beacon from a nearby colony ship that had witnessed the explosion. Ethan smiled faintly, his ship barely held together. Alarms flickering weakly. He looked out at the stars. No longer cold. No longer empty, Lyra, he said softly. You said one could live, but maybe both of us did. The silver light pulsed once more, gentle and alive, spreading across the ship like a heartbeat. The stars shimmered brighter, and the silence of space carried the soft echo of her voice. Not in sorrow, but in peace. The light that remained. The silence after the storm was almost holy. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. The wreckage of the Seraph fleet drifted among the stars like broken halos. Thousands of pieces of light slowly fading into the black, and in the middle of that graveyard, one small ship moved, slow, steady, alive inside it. Ethan Cross sat before the main console. His reflection stared back at him through the cracked glass. Eyes silver white, skin faintly glowing with the memory of Lyra's light. The war was over. The fleet was gone, but his body was not the same. The living code had fused with him completely. He could feel the hum of the universe inside his veins, every heartbeat echoing with the power of two worlds, yet he felt alone. The voice that once whispered inside him, Lyra's voice, was gone, replaced only by silence. For the first time since he had found her, there was no sound, no whisper, no breath that wasn't his own. He looked at the stars. You said live for both of us, he murmured. But what do I do now? The ship's sensors beeped faintly. Detecting movement in the distance, he zoomed the viewfinder. And what he saw made his breath catch. It wasn't human. It was an alien ship, ancient and elegant, drifting toward him. Its shape glowed faint gold, a design he had never seen before. The voice of the ship's AI crackled. Unidentified vessel approaching. Organic energy signature detected. Ethan hesitated. His instincts told him to run. But another feeling, a quiet pull in his chest, urged him to stay. The alien ship stopped a few kilometers away, releasing a small pod of light. It floated slowly toward him, gentle and graceful. He opened the airlock cautiously, ready for an attack, but the pod didn't explode. Instead, it unfolded like a flower, revealing a small crystal sphere hovering in the air. The moment Ethan touched it, a wave of energy spread through the room, and the lights dimmed. Then he heard it. Her voice, Ethan. His chest tightened. He knew that voice anywhere. Lyra? He whispered. The sphere glowed brighter, forming a faint holographic image. Her face soft and radiant. The same gentle smile she had the last time he saw her alive. Don't be afraid, her voice said. I'm not truly gone. Ethan stepped closer, his eyes wide. But how? The code, she said softly. It was never meant to die when I gave you my light. I became part of the memory itself. My body faded, but my consciousness lived inside the link. You carry me now, not as a ghost, but as something real. Ethan felt tears rise in his eyes, floating weightless around him. I thought I lost you, he whispered. Lyra smiled faintly. You never lose what you become. Before he could answer, the ship shook violently, alarms blared. The sensors screamed. Something massive was approaching. Ethan turned to the screen and froze. Out of the void came a new fleet, darker than before. Their design was alien, neither human nor seraph. Their hulls shimmered like liquid shadow. Lyra's voice grew urgent. They are drawn to the code, Ethan. They want what you carry. Who are they? He demanded. They are what came after, she whispered. The evolution the seraphs feared. The ones who waited for the fall of both sides to rise. Ethan clenched his fists. So the war never ended, she shook her head. No, but this time it's not between species. It's between creation and corruption. Between life that feels and life that consumes. The first blast hit. Shaking the ship to its core, Ethan grabbed the controls. But they were fried. He looked at Lyra's image. Her face calm even as the ship trembled around them. What do I do? He asked, his voice breaking. Her eyes glowed brighter. You do what humans do best, you hope, you fight. You choose. The ship's energy readings began to spike. The silver light inside Ethan's body flared like a star being born. The panels melted around his hands as he merged with the controls. The ship became part of him. His veins connected to its systems. His heartbeat syncing with the core. The alien fleet closed in. Dark wings spreading across the stars. Ethan's voice was low, steady. Then let's show them what it means to be human. The silver light spread outward, growing brighter and brighter until the whole ship looked like a second sun. The energy wave pulsed through the void, cutting through the enemy fleet like light through smoke. Ships cracked apart, their shadows torn by the force. Lyra's voice echoed through him. Ethan, your light is changing them. He watched as the dark ship stopped firing, their weapons dropping, their hulls softening. The black metal began to glow faintly. Shifting from shadow to silver, he whispered, They're waking up. Lyra smiled. Because you showed them something stronger than war. The storm of light faded, leaving behind a silence deeper than before. The alien fleet, once a swarm of destruction, now floated peacefully, alive but changed. The universe itself felt different, lighter, as if it had taken a breath after holding it for centuries. Ethan's body was weak, his light dimming, his voice fading. Lyra, am I dying? Her image shimmered, kneeling beside him. No, Ethan, you're becoming. He looked at her, confusion and peace mixing in his eyes. Becoming what? She smiled. The bridge we were meant to be. The link between all that was broken. As his consciousness began to drift, the ship's scanners recorded something extraordinary, the surrounding space filling with new energy signatures. Each one faintly human, faintly alien, all glowing with the same light that once belonged to him and Lyra. Her last words were a whisper against the silence. You gave the galaxy back its heartbeat. When the light finally faded, the stars burned brighter than they ever had. And somewhere in that quiet between worlds, two voices echoed together, one human, one alien, united in something greater than creation itself. Ethan Cross was gone, but his light remained. It lingered in every corner of the galaxy, in every heart that still dared to hope, in every whisper that refused to fade. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the stars did not look cold, they looked alive, breathing, waiting. Because humanity had not just survived, it had evolved.